Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. The Caribbean night is heavy with perfume, not of salt and tar, but roasted meats, spilled wine, and the faint incense brought from distant markets. At the center of it all sits a man who was once barefoot on a dock, pockets empty, back bent under the weight of a stolen rope. Now he wears velvet, his fingers glitter with stolen jewels, and the air around him hums with musicians playing on borrowed instruments. He is a pirate, yes, but tonight he is something else entirely. Tonight he is rich. Pirate wealth was not earned slowly like a merchant's fortune, but erupted like fire. One raid, one captured galleon, one stroke of merciless luck, and the man who yesterday gnawed on moldy bread suddenly scattered gold like sand. To be a rich pirate was to become a king without a crown, a monarch who ruled by coin and fear, a shadow of nobility wrapped in smoke and rum. And yet, the illusion of kingship came with its own chains. For the crown of the richest pirates was heavy, and the throne was built on shifting tides. The richest pirates dressed their bodies as their true banners. Ships might remain patched, sails might be ragged, but the captain himself blazed like a torch. Velvet jackets stitched with stolen thread, lace collars yellowed with sweat but dazzling under candlelight, boots polished with stolen oil. Jewelry was not decoration, but armor. Thick chains hung around necks, rings on every finger, earrings glittering with plundered gems. Even their weapons became luxuries. Pistols with silver handles, cutlasses with gilded hilts, daggers studded with garnet. A sword was no longer simply a tool of killing, but a stage prop that announced power before a word was spoken. Wealthy pirates also adorned their hair and faces. Powder, stolen wigs, and exotic dyes transformed sunburned men into parodies of nobility. In the candlelit haze of taverns, their appearance was meant to confuse, to impress, to frighten. Were they lords? Were they outlaws? They were both, and neither. To be rich was to eat beyond reason. Feasts stretched from midday to dawn. Whole pigs roasted on spits, their fat dripping into the fire. Barrels of rum cracked open and spilled until the floorboards were slick. Platters of citrus fruits piled high, their scent masking the stench of sweat and rot. Exotic spices seized from merchant ships dusted over meat, turning every bite into proof of conquest. Meals were not quiet affairs. They were spectacles of noise, laughter, and defiance. Musicians pounded drums, flutes squealed, and pirates roared songs until their voices collapsed. The richest among them demanded more than food. They demanded theater. Dancers were hired, actors pressed into service, fireworks stolen from Spanish holds exploded into the night sky. It was not just about hunger. It was about proving again and again that fortune had transformed their world. Where once they had gnawed on salted fish, now they gorged on luxury. And in that gluttony, there was always a shadow of desperation, for deep down they knew the feast could vanish with a single storm. Rich pirates did not spend their wealth in solitude. Their fortunes attracted lovers, companions, and entire brothels eager to taste the coins that fell like rain. Taverns became their palaces, filled with laughter and whispers, with women and men drawn to the glow of sudden wealth. During the day, they flaunted their status by walking through markets surrounded by admirers. By night, they purchased intimacy not only of the body, but of attention, of affection, of performance. Gold bought the illusion of love, and many pirates preferred illusion to loneliness. Wealthy pirates often maintained private rooms above taverns, transformed into decadent chambers. Soft fabrics draped over windows, beds piled with furs, candles burning late into the night. For men who had once slept in hammocks under leaking sails, This was paradise, fragile and temporary. The richest pirates sought permanence in stone. Some purchased houses in the very towns that once shunned them. Others bought land, estates, even plantations managed by overseers while the pirates drifted between sea and shore. These properties were trophies, symbols that they had risen above their origins. The houses stood as contradictions. Outside, their walls bore the scars of tropical storms. Inside, the floors gleamed with imported tiles, tables sagged under silverware, and mirrors reflected faces lined by the sea. For a brief moment, pirates played at being gentlemen, walking through gardens perfumed with fruit blossoms rather than salt air. But permanence was always an illusion. Behind every locked door lingered the memory of cannon smoke. Wealth brought not only luxury, but weight. Gold was heavy, and not only in the purse. Rich pirates lived in constant vigilance. Chests were hidden beneath floorboards, behind false walls, or buried under the sand of secret coves. Keys never left their necks. Coins were counted at night and hidden by dawn. Paranoia carved their days. A trusted sailor could become a thief. A friend could become a betrayer. Some pirates surrounded themselves with guards. Others never slept without a pistol at hand. Wealth did not free them. It chained them to suspicion. And still, they could not stop hoarding. Every jewel, every coin, was both curse and proof of survival. They bore their riches like anchors, dragging them deeper into fear even as they glittered in the light. Among pirates, wealth carried omens. Too much gold was said to anger the sea. Storms rose against ships too heavy with silver. Chests left unblessed were believed to attract spirits of the drowned. The richest pirates decorated their treasure with charms, bones tied with ribbon, feathers soaked in rum, shells carved with symbols. Some refused to count their coins aloud, fearing that numbers themselves could summon disaster. Others poured offerings into the sea, a coin here, a trinket there, begging the ocean to forgive their greed. Superstition wrapped wealth in shadow. Rich pirates lived not only with fear of betrayal, but with fear of fate itself. Rich pirates dreamed of transforming their infamy into respect. They purchased fine clothes, posed for portraits, and spoke with the polished manners of gentlemen. They bribed governors, offered gifts to officials, and sought the titles that once seemed unreachable. They dined beside merchants pretending to be equals. They hosted gatherings in their new houses where the wine flowed and the walls echoed with laughter more polished than the taverns. For a time, they succeeded. They walked among the powerful, their origins hidden beneath velvet and coin. But beneath the silk remained the smell of salt and powder. No amount of wealth could cleanse them of what they were. Sooner or later, the mask always cracked. Rich pirates rarely grew old. Wealth attracted not only envy but vengeance. Governments sent hunters, rivals plotted in the dark, crews muttered, their loyalty eroded by the glitter of gold. Fortunes dissolved at gambling tables, spilled across tavern floors, or vanished into the hands of thieves. The houses crumbled, the gardens overgrew, the silk rotted in humid air. The richest pirates often ended as they began, in mud, in fear, in hunger. The difference was that for a brief moment they had soared, their lives brighter than kings, their nights louder than courts. And in that brief light, they burned themselves out. So imagine again the banquet. A pirate captain raising his jeweled hand, laughter echoing across a table sagging under stolen luxuries. Hear the music, the shouting, the clash of cups. See the gold glittering in the candlelight, more treasure than empires could count. That was the life of the richest pirates, a life of fire, of hunger satisfied too quickly, of wealth too fragile to last, glorious, reckless, cursed, and unforgettable. They were kings of smoke, monarchs of illusion, and when the sea finally claimed them, the tide washed their crowns away. But for a moment, for a single dazzling moment, they lived richer than the world had ever allowed men like them to dream. After nights of feasting, mornings for the richest pirates were slow, heavy, and pungent with the smell of spilled drink and sweat. They woke not to the creak of the mast, but to the muffled clatter of servants cleaning. Light spilled through shutters, revealing bodies sprawled across furs, tables still littered with bones and coins. For ordinary sailors, dawn was a time of work. For the rich pirate, it was a time of indulgent recovery, another day beginning not with labor, but with excess. Wealth was not only measured in gold, but in the performance of status. A pirate could not simply be rich. He had to look rich. Silk coats, powdered wigs, boots imported from Europe, all served as armor. Even idle walks through port towns became parades of superiority. People turned their heads, whispering of his fortune, his reputation, his danger. To be rich was to be seen, and to be seen was to remind others of power. The richest pirates often sat at gambling tables, rolling dice, throwing cards, watching coins clink against wood. For them, the act was not about winning or losing. It was about dominance, about showing that wealth was so abundant it could be risked without care. Whole fortunes vanished in a single night. Others grew larger, bloated with luck. But always the air reeked of desperation. Gold that came from plunder was squandered with the same violence it was won. With riches came entourages. No pirate, however fierce, could manage a fortune alone. Servants, guards, scribes, cooks, and musicians surrounded him, forming a miniature court. These people were not always loyal. They were paid in coin and rum. Their allegiance shifted like the tide. Still, they gave the pirate a taste of authority, a shadow of nobility. For every command, there was a hand to obey. For every gesture, someone ready to bow. For all their excess, the lives of rich pirates carried silence too. Between the noise of taverns and the roar of parties lay moments of unsettling stillness. In those hours they stared at their hoards, at coins that glimmered yet whispered nothing. The sea called to them even on land, a reminder that the source of their fortune was not stone walls or silk beds, but the rolling, unpredictable ocean. Silence weighed heavier than gold. Rich pirates often surrounded themselves with women, not only lovers, but symbols of prosperity. Some were companions in taverns, some kept as mistresses in fine houses, others displayed like jewels on a captain's arm. These women, in turn, wielded influence, whispering advice, warning of plots, managing affairs when men drank themselves senseless. They were both decoration and power, part of the pirate's wealth, and also a reminder that fortune flowed through many hands, not only his own. The richest pirates did not fear only kings and navies, they feared each other. Wealth bred rivalry sharper than swords. In ports, rich pirates eyed one another with suspicion, each determined to appear more splendid, more feared, more extravagant. Their banquets became competitions, their clothing battles of vanity, their crews sharpened into weapons of intimidation. Richness did not unite them, it divided them, each seeing the other not as kin but as threat. Tropical air is cruel to silk and lace. Humidity rotted cloth, silver tarnished, wood swelled, and perfumes turned sour. The richest pirates, though surrounded by finery, fought a constant war against decay. their mansions filled with insects, their coats frayed at the edges, their wigs crawled with vermin despite their polish. For all their efforts, the Caribbean gnawed at their luxuries until they seemed grotesque parodies of nobility, dressed in wealth already crumbling at the seams. No matter how high they rose, rich pirates could not escape the shadow of gallows and noose. Officials whispered their names, courts debated their fates, and bounties were pinned in taverns with promises of gold for betrayal. Every coin they spent left a trail. Every display of wealth reminded rulers of their defiance. Even surrounded by guards, even seated in palaces, they lived with the knowledge that justice, slow, relentless, merciless, was never far behind. In the end, wealth could not shield them. Some lost fortunes to betrayal, others squandered them to madness, still others carried their gold to the bottom of the sea. Rich pirates lived like kings, but they died like men, often violently, often forgotten, their crowns dissolved in salt water. Their lives became echoes, their treasures myths, their names folded into songs of warning. Rich or poor, pirate or prince, the tide claimed them all. So picture again the banquet, the jewels, the laughter. Imagine the velvet, the powdered wigs, the towers of roasted meat, the women draped in finery, the guards standing at every door. And then imagine silence. Empty halls, abandoned houses, coins scattered in dust, silk eaten by insects, gardens overrun with weeds. That was the truth of the richest pirates. Their wealth was dazzling but fleeting, their power immense but brittle. Their lives a blaze of glory against the night, extinguished too soon. They were kings of nothing, monarchs of smoke, sovereigns of the tide. And when the sea swallowed them, all their gold returned to silence.